Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be diving into Lightroom Classic, and I'm going to be walking you through my full Lightroom Classic workflow of how I get my photos to go from something like this to like this in a matter of about 5 to 10 minutes. We'll see how long it takes. Every photo is going to be different. But yeah, without further ado, let's dive into Lightroom and let's get this video started. Okay, so here we are inside of Lightroom, and this is the photo we're going to be working with. Now, this was shot about a week and a half ago in central Java, overlooking Mount Merapi, just after the sun had gone down. And unfortunately, and I guess the reason why this photo is so blue, there was no sunset. It was just fully cloudy. We're actually surprised we got to see the volcano in the background because all day it had just been covered in clouds. So we went up here anyway, and we got this awesome shot, and we're stoked with it. Of course, I was with Luca, my good friend. I'm sure you guys know him. But yeah, this is what we shot, and this is where we shot it. And believe it or not, this volcano was actually active about 2 weeks ago, which is crazy. Maybe 2-3 weeks ago. It wasn't active while we were there, kind of thank God, but it also could have been crazy to see. But who knows what would have happened. Anyway, this is the photo we're editing, so let's dive in. All right, first things first, we're gonna jump over to the basic tab, and of course, we're gonna need to change the white balance. This is really, really dark, and one of the easiest ways, sorry, blue, not dark. It is a little dark, but we're changing the white balance in the beginning. One of the easiest ways to find out whether your photo or video, I guess we're just going with photos today, whether your photo is too blue or too warm is simply by looking at skin tones. Of course, if you have skin tones in your shot, this is gonna work. If you don't, well, it's a little harder. But anyway, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna zoom in on my skin here. And as we can see, it's a little bit blue and a little bit purpley. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna leave the image zoomed in here, and we're just gonna increase the temperature ever so slightly. And we're gonna get this to a healthy looking level. I think this is looking great. Maybe a little bit too purple still. All right, before, after, you can see this is actually looking healthy. This looks like I have serious nutrition deficiency. Boom, just like that. And now the rest of the image looks great. So we could have done that, of course, just by playing around up here. But to be honest with you, I want to dial in my skin tones to make sure they are looking great. And 9 times out of 10, when you dial in your skin tones, everything else looks great as well. All right, so what else we're gonna do is we're gonna increase the shadows here as it's just a little bit dark. We don't wanna increase the shadows too much that I'm all of a sudden not popping from everything around me. So obviously when these are a little darker, I'm popping from the shot just a little harder. We're just gonna increase those ever so slightly, and we're also gonna decrease the highlights as well. We are going to increase the contrast though, ever so slightly as well. And then we're also just going to raise the exposure, just like that. And now we've gone from this to this. We're now working with somewhat of an accurate image. Now, to be honest with you, this is actually where my Lightroom editing workflow stops. I'm not saying that this is what my end photo is ever gonna look like, but usually I come over to my presets and I dive into my master collection. And then, for example, if let's go for portraits. I guess, we got a person in here. If we have a look at the portraits pack, I would then just scroll through and see what is what. And these are exactly the presets that I use on every single one of my Instagram posts. And yeah, we just find one of these presets, we click on it, we're good to go, and we go from there. But of course, that is not what we're gonna do today, but if you wanna do that, you are absolutely more than welcome to. You can head down to the first link in the description, use this cheeky little discount code at checkout for a cheeky little discount. And yeah, you can pick up my master collection of Lightroom presets and save yourself a stack of time and also get the looks, the colors, and everything else that I work with. But of course, we're gonna need to set the basic panel first and then move from there. So anyway, let's dive in and let's actually manually do this whole entire edit. So next thing is what we're gonna do is every single thing that I do to all of my photos is drop the clarity. If you increase the clarity, just not a vibe. Looks really HDR. Looks like you took this with like a 2011 Android phone. Not ideal. I really like the look of a lower clarity shot. And if we have a look at the leaves up here, right, just for example, if I increase the clarity, but if I decrease the clarity, it actually becomes a little bit slightly more out of focus, and I really, really like this look. It just kind of sells, like this was already shot at f2, which is crazy, but yeah, it just kind of sells that out of focus just a little bit more. It makes those nice little soft areas just a little softer, and I like the look. But anyway, we're gonna leave the vibrance and saturation here for now. We're gonna play around in the HSL color tab below. I never just do global saturation or vibrance. It's not my vibe. But anyway, let's dive into the tone curve here. Of course, we're gonna drop the shadows. Of course, we're gonna increase the midtones, and we're also gonna lean into the highlights just ever so slightly. And then we are also going to just raise the blacks just a little bit, just like that. I think things are looking great. All right, next is on to one of the juiciest parts of Lightroom, in my opinion, and that is, of course, the HSL color tab. First things first, I need to decrease the blues just a little bit, and we're also going to give them a little bit more of a tropical vibe, a little bit more of that aqua, nothing too crazy. If we just turn this off and back on, we can just see it's a little bit more subtle now, which is perfect. Let's turn that back on. And then what we are also going to do is we are going to decrease these greens and we're going to decrease these yellows just a little bit. We are going to look at our skin tone here because, once again, this is a very important part of the shot. If we have a look at the reds and the oranges, which is like 99% of where the skin tone lies, we're going to be able to see we've got a lot of red there, so we might dial the red back just a little bit. And then what about the orange? Yeah, the orange is more or less my entire skin tone. We might dial that up just a little bit. And if we turn that off and turn that back on, I think things are looking good. Let's have a look from a wider point of view. Banging. All right. I'm loving it. I'm more or less pretty happy with this, to be honest. I think the yellow, we might be able to change this a little bit more orange, but I just don't want to affect the leaves. If we reset that, oh, double click to reset. Let's see what, no, okay, definitely. Let's change this orange to be, let's change the yellow to be a little bit more orange. So I think this looks a lot nicer. We're gonna leave the greens and aquas. Let's see where the aquas lie in this image. Just a little bit on the trees there. We're gonna decrease that, and we're also gonna turn them a little bit more green to kind of lean into that big rainforest, dense, jungly vibe. And if we have a look at the before and the after, things are looking good. We are gonna come to the green here though, and put a little bit of color back into them, because I can see after we've changed the yellows, this tree is looking a little brown, but we can sort that out later. No problem at all. All right, next up, let's have a look at the luminance. I kind of want to sell that there's like quite a bit of fog here, so we might just increase the luminance ever so slightly here. And then we also might increase the luminance of the greens as well, just a little bit, maybe the yellow. Yeah, just a little bit. I like this leading line. I'm a huge fan of it. We're going to clean this orange up later as well. But yeah, let's increase it like that. And then just on the HSL tab, we've gone from this to this. I think it's looking really clean. And then, of course, into another very juicy part of the edit. We are going for a fairly moody color grade here, in my opinion. I mean, look at this place. There's fog, there's no golden light, it's moody, it's everything that you think it would be. So we're gonna lean into a bluer tone for the entire image, which means we're probably gonna have to increase the oranges just a little bit to make sure my skin doesn't fade away there. We might also have to come back up to the temperature later, but that's all right. Then we're going to come to the highlights here. We're going to add a little bit of blue in there. What I usually do is I like to kind of really push the blue quite a lot. If we press J, that red thing's going to go away. And what that red thing is it's going to show me the clipped areas, which is just pure white. I'm not sure why why putting blue into the highlights has done that, but anyway, I'm going to press J because I'm not going to push it that far. What I usually do is I push a lot of the color in and then I dial it in. So I can kind of go around the circle like that. And we're going to bring it to about here. And then we're going to pretty much dial this back to nearly 0, just like that. And then same thing with the shadows. I think blue into the shadows again. We can go around, definitely, probably somewhere like that. And then we're just going to, okay, there, just like that. And then we are just going to dial this right back. It's such a subtle little effect, but I think I like it. Before, after, everything's just a little bit more blue now. This tree's kind of sorted itself out. What we might do though is we might decrease the blues just a little more, just like that. Checking that skin tone, it's kind of changed a bit, but from where we started to where we are now, before and after, things are looking juicy. All right, moving on. We're not going to worry about this whatsoever. This was shot at ISO 200, so we might just increase the noise, reduction just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. There's going to be no noise at all. This was shot on the R5C. I promise you there's no noise at 200 ISO. If there is, it's going to be tiny. And then I'm also going to come into the calibration here, and we're just going to play with this just ever so slightly once again. We're not really going to change the red primaries, but we are going to change the blue and the green, just like that. All right, I'm really digging this shot. If we have a look at before and after, it's looking great. But to be honest with you, probably only about 50% of the way in, because now the fun starts. First things first, what I want to do is I want to put a linear gradient over this part of the image, and I just want to increase the exposure just a little bit. Not too crazy, it's just getting a little bit dark, and then I'm also just going to warm this part up just a little bit, nothing too crazy. If we look at before and after, it's ever so slightly. And we're gonna work on blending all of that in together, no worries at all. And then I'm gonna come back in here and we're gonna dial down the greens. Actually, what we should do is just dial down the luminance of the greens. And there we go. I think this is looking banging now. All right, now what else we're gonna do is we're gonna come in here, we're gonna add another radial gradient. No, this is our first radial gradient. And what we're gonna do is we might reduce the feather, and pretty much the idea here is to get the mountain, the volcanoes, and myself in this inner circle, so then when I hit invert, I'm not selected, and neither is the volcanoes. Neither are the volcanoes. So now we're gonna reduce the exposure here, and that's really blended in the linear gradient that we added. So now if we have a look at before and after, things are looking really juicy. And then I'm gonna come up here and we're gonna add another linear gradient, but this time, instead of it looking like this, it's gonna look a little bit something like this. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come to these dots and we're gonna intersect the mask with a luminance range. And what this is gonna do is this is gonna allow us to just select the brighter parts of the image or the darker parts of the image within our mask. So for example, I'm gonna just wanna be selecting the brighter parts. I'm gonna start moving this up, and as you will see, there we go. We're starting to remove a lot in here and a lot in here, and I can really refine that just like that. We really just wanna be playing with the brighter parts of this image just like that. We actually might feather this out just ever so slightly because there is a little bit of detail up there, and we're just gonna reduce the exposure just a little bit, and now we're really blended. I think this is looking great. I'm loving the tones, I'm loving the vibes, everything is looking really nice. We're gonna add another radial gradient. This is kind of the theme of this video, believe me. Radial gradients are my favorite thing inside of Lightroom, and we're just gonna increase the exposure. We're going to decrease the dehaze to kind of add a little bit more fog into there, but we are gonna drop the blacks, increase the contrast, and drop the shadows. And then we're also gonna desaturate ever so slightly because it adds a little bit of blue in there. And then if we have a look at before and after, it's just emphasize that fog. It makes it another layer, another dynamic kind of part of the image, and I think it's looking great. Now, the only other thing that's kind of irking me about this shot is the brightness of the sky above the volcano. So what we might do is we might see if Adobe, either one. Okay. There we go. It's been able to select the sky automatically, which is actually quite nice. And what we're going to do is we are just going to reduce the highlights to see how that looks. That looks absolutely dreadful. We're not going to do that. We're going to add another mask, another radial gradient, and we're going to increase the feather like crazy. And we're just going to kind of drop that right there. And we're just going to decrease this until it's kind of even with everything else. And now I think it's looking banging. So if we have a look at before and after, things are looking great. And we're gonna not stop there. We're gonna add another mask, and this is gonna be me. We're gonna do maybe my entire person. There we go. And then we're just gonna increase the exposure just a little bit. This is like, some people can go really bad at this, and like that just looks horrible. We're just looking to increase it, honestly, like maybe by 0.05. It's super, super small, and honestly, you can hardly tell a difference. You can kind of tell in the shirt. It just looks a little bit nicer. It's a little fuller. You know what? To be honest with you, I don't like it. I think that looks better. To be honest, actually, what we might do is we might just grab a brush here and we might just make this part of my shirt a little darker. Sometimes, you know, you could be playing around and one thing leads to another. You're like, yeah, I need to brighten myself, whatever the case. And next thing you know, you're dropping the shadows. And that's just how it goes. There we go. That kind of sells a little bit more of a natural vibe. Before and after, things are looking very tasty. And now, to be honest with you, I want to add a little bit more fog into this shot. I think it just needs it. You know, so we're going to go exposure up again. We're going to go clarity and texture down. And of course, dehaze down. And then saturation down. And then a little bit of blacks down, shadows down, contrast up. Boom. If we have a look at before and after, just adding that little bit of that little touch of just niceness is beautiful. And then maybe, just maybe, one last mask. We are going to make sure auto mask is turned off, and we're going to make sure feather is maxed out. We're going to come in here. We are just going to select all that area. It's not me, and then we are just going to desaturate just a little bit. Just a little bit. Nothing crazy. It's also looking maybe just a little pink. All right, there we go. So if we have a look at before and after, yeah. See, before there was like that blue tinge. Now there's no tinge. Maybe it's a little orange, but we did decrease that. Okay. All right, I'm happy with that. This is looking absolutely banging. Maybe one last thing. It's probably not going to be one last thing, let's be honest. We are going to come in here and we are going to mask out. We're going to drop the feather like crazy. We're going to mask out the bridge with auto mask on, so hopefully it doesn't pick up my leg there. Okay, it's not done very well there at all. Just a little bit under my shirt. We're going to zoom in and we're going to erase my leg, not remove my leg, of course, but we're going to just erase this little area here, because we don't want to be making my leg any darker than it already is, because that's what we're going to be doing to the bridge. So we're just going to come in here, press O to remove that, and then we're just going to turn down the exposure there to make that side a little bit more moody. And man, before and after, I'm loving this shot. The last thing to do, of course, because obviously we're going to be whacking this on Instagram, crop 4x5, move it a little up. What we want to be looking for here is make sure that we're not cutting anything off. So for example, if we press O, and then we can see a little nicer, that is also how to cycle through a load of crop overlays. Just press O, there's stacks here. We don't want to be cutting off my shoe here at all. And we want to be making sure that the mountains are sort of still aligned in the middle, because we've kind of got two peaks here, which is great. And then obviously me on the right side. So the mountains are balancing the left. I'm on the right side. Everything's looking good. Nothing's really cut off. We're just losing a little bit of this and obviously a little bit of the sky. This little part up here, I wouldn't worry about that all too much. And maybe we might just move it up a little higher. There we go. Just to make sure that is looking nice up there. And more or less, this is our photo. Before, after. I love this edit. I think it looks banging. And you guys let me know what you think down below. I think this is great. I absolutely love this shot. Like I said, I usually don't edit like this. I usually would just dive into my presets. And as you can see, I think we've got like over 50 in here now, which is wild. And I guarantee you one of them would make this shot look nearly exactly how this shot looks now. But anyway, guys, that is going to wrap up today's video. If you have enjoyed, let me know down below. If you're new around here, a subscribe would mean the absolute world. And I know that I've already done a similar video like this in the past, but hear me out. Every single photo has a different workflow. Sometimes we're adding 1 or 2 masks. Sometimes we're adding 9 masks. And I guess that's just the difference, you know? There's so much you can do in photos, and especially on Lightroom, that one Lightroom editing workflow is never enough. And to be honest with you, we could now dive into Lightroom, clean this photo up, maybe make the mountains bigger, you absolutely name it. And yeah, the workflow would change so much more. But anyway, like I said, that's going to wrap up today's video. If you have enjoyed, let me know. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Peace.